Hey everyone. Today's going to be an interesting day. Oh no, man. Oh, enable stream. Oh yeah. Alright. So today's gonna be a interesting kind of day. So I have to set everything up to kind of work, but give me a smidge. Things first. That's where I want to go. Because we're pretty much watching a bunch of YouTube videos today, so you guys get to see what I like to watch. Yep, it's literally a just chatting stream. So we can chit chat while the video is going, we can do whatever. I'm gonna go to YouTube real quick and do some changes to stuff here. Switch to... edit the video real quick. I'll edit YouTube stuff because I have to do this part manually to... So... Give me a moment. This is the setup portion of the stream, so... Alright, that should be good on that, and then we're not gaming. Label this as entertainment, because there's no just chatting thing. Alright, that should be updated to be just chatting now. Oops. Oh, there we go, that's the one we want. Alright. So, we'll be watching what I usually watch. I need to pick that. There we go. There we go. I know I kind of sound like I'm out of it. That's because I am out of it. Do it. I know it's human, yeah. Sorry, Mary. I'm going to call you Mary. Hopefully I'll remember that. Oh yeah. I'm a little out of it. Like I said, I literally just woke up from like a 6-hour nap. Wow. Water. Can't wait to add the hydrate stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing today, is we're watching videos, and I like helping. Oh, you play Ponytown! I might have to go on that today too. Were you on the 18+ server, or were you on the safe server? Because those are the two I mainly play on. But I am not named as I should. So. I'm guessing it was the safe server. Because if you're under the age of 18, it's best not to be on the 18+ server. That, and you have to have an age confirmation by Ponytown themselves. Oh, sorry, I'm just not talking as loud as I used to. Oh, geez, I think I'm gonna turn myself up at this stream. Because I am mumbling and moaning. So, yeah. There. I should be a little bit louder for the stream. And if I break your ears, I am sorry. But luckily, this is a pretty chill day, and yeah. So I'm gonna get transitioning over to what we're doing, which is really just watching YouTube videos and just chatting. So mostly reactionary content. Explains why this one's up, but I didn't really feel like art or music today, so let me just. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Yeah. It just get the sleep out of my eyes for a split moment. What? Okay. Alright, well, we're gonna be watching the video. This video is by Delightful. I'm gonna scroll down so you can see their YouTube channel. That's who I've been binging lately, and they create dolls. We're gonna be watching a bunch of doll repaints. Yes, because I feel like it. I don't care what others think. I actually really love this style of content. And this person does it more in a tutorial way. And I know a few other doll repainters that would do well. That do really well. Right now we're gonna go through a lot of Delightful's content. So, what is the question, Mary? What's your question? I'm not planning on listening to music, but maybe. Maybe. Because this is not a request stream and shit, so. Let's go! Have some fun.
A quick thank you to Charlie Sparks for redesigning the Delightful logo. I hope you love the new look as much as I do. Thanks, Charlie!
Oh yeah, that's the last what I was watching before this.
Annyeong! Welcome to Delightful. At last, it's time to kick off the much-anticipated Dragon series. Aurora needs a posse of dragon friends, don't you think? Just like with the Evolution series, you guys helped me.
I'm not gonna have very much reaction to it. I'll just sit here and watch with you guys.
I'll admit, I threw Dark into the mix as an afterthought.
But
I had no idea it would be so popular. So we're starting with Dark. Let's get into the concept art. Dark. What do you think of when you hear the word? What became immediately apparent is how diverse this topic is. Unlike Earth or Fire, which seem pretty straightforward, Dark could be interpreted in a number of ways. There's thematically
out of either a monster idol or a different type of doll. They do a lot of customization. Just watch, it's so cool what it turns into.
Being kept in the dark, or what
doing like doll repaints and stuff is an art form on its own.
Also
oh, you won't be scared. Like, it'll be a cute dragon. Or a sexy dragon, one of the two.
Actual observable things that are naturally black.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Where to begin,
She doesn't make them look scary.
You'll see evidence of all these ideas in the sketches to follow. In these early sketches, I explored body shapes.
Why do I hear the word "Mama" from that one song? Jeez.
I was a little overwhelmed with what direction to pursue, so I came up with 14 sets of horns for starters, and asked you guys which ones you liked best. 12 won the vote by a landslide, with 1 and 3 following up behind. Taking these horns, I tried to develop full character sketches from there. Unfortunately, it did not come easily. After that brainstorm,
dragon. She's gonna go all out dragon.
Again, and came up with 4 heads each per horn. These didn't help me much. All of these could work, it just depends what I want to pursue, right? We've got some warrior-like characters, some sorcerers, some wild tribal-like designs. It seemed like I was going in circles, so I took a step back.
As you can tell, they are Korean.
Mostly focusing on the silhouette.
They're pretty
now
cool.
we're getting somewhere.
I like their content.
At last, I was able to produce 3 complete character concepts for you to vote on.
Yeah, the dragon you saw at the beginning was the her first dragon attempt. I think it was from like a stock box that she had. That they had. I don't know if it's male or female.
After counting the votes and processing all the feedback and critique, I revised these concepts and produced a second pass of designs.
I really do want to get into doll making myself because it looks so interesting and fun.
And with all these designs done, the final vote was cast. You guys really came through and decided design 1B was the one to make.
You chose 3, yeah.
To make her, let's use Force Captain Adora from the She-Ra Dolls line. I'm choosing her for her petite frame and delicate features. Had we gone with a more warrior-esque design, I might have chosen a
ready
big
to see a doll
but
mutilated?
Because we're taking the mysterious sorceress route, I want the character's strengths to lie in intelligence and magic, not physical prowess. This doll's head is already small enough to match Aurora's, so I won't have to shrink it this time. Alright, let's get started with this.
Oh, you're about
Pop
to
off
see,
her
this
head,
is doll
tie up
prep.
the hair, and give her a close shave with a sharp pair of scissors.
This is
Dig out the
what
rest
doll
with
prep
pliers,
looks
and
like
she's
whenever
ready
they're
for
making it, but
customization.
they reroute and give new hair.
She
So.
needs a digitigrade dragon legs, so we'll have to reconstruct
It's
her
not-
existing one.
Well, actually, this is not a Barbie doll. This
I
is
make
a
2
She-Ra
cuts per
doll.
leg, one above the knee and one
Very
mid-shin.
different. Like,
I'm using my
all
Dremel
dolls
tool
are
this
made by
time, like I've
Barbie.
seen Doll's brand new look do. It sure is faster than the jeweler's saw. I'll be doing plenty of cutting and sanding during this project, so here's the obligatory safety warning.
oh, don't worry.
Wear the necessary protection you need. I'm sporting goggles and a respirator's mask, which I wear honestly for 90% of this project. I cut off her knee so I could reattach it at a 90-degree angle like this, see? Her femur still looks too long, so I'm going to whack off a bit more.
Oh.
Great. Let's reassemble them. I'll be using the same popsicle
She's
stick
creating
approach as I did for
digigrade
Aurora.
legs. That's why
I
she's
drill
doing
all the
that bit.
necessary holes and add structure out of chopsticks to extend the lower leg. This doll's proportions are much more realistic, so she's not equipped with the shins for days that Monster High dolls come with. After
Oh.
cutting the shin to create the new joint, it looks much too short. So I had to lengthen it. I hold the pieces together with hot glue before drilling through all of the pieces and connecting them more firmly with wire.
It's kind of like what like my pieces look like before they're done. Look a little bit like mutilated messes.
To put her femur back together, I drill a hole into the middle, twist some wire around the knee joint, and shove it back in there.
Oh, trust me.
I
Wait
attach a
till
couple
she
more
wipes off
wires
the
in and
face.
around the knee for more connection points, and fill in the rest of the space with hot glue.
That's alright. Alright.
I want to try something different with the toes this time. Aurora's toes look cute, but the toe on the inside is prone to popping off with enough force. So I came up with a different approach. One long dowel per foot with 3 loops of wire or toes that
She
can slide on.
really re-rigs the dolls so they're posable. She really goes to the extra effort from what I've seen other,
While I've got the wire out, we can make the armature for her ears and horns. Mark where you want the horns to be, then insert 3 wires into the head, forming a triangular base. Push them out through the neck hole so that you can twist them together, and then pull them back inside the head. Now you can twist and shape the wire
That's
to form a
alright.
skeleton for the horns.
and you, that's all that matters, right?
I do the same thing for her ears.
Oh, she's gonna do custom ears for this one too.
With the structures in place, we can start sculpting. I'll be
Playtime.
using my favorite 2-part epoxy sculpt.
Playtime.
Mix equal parts A and B, then get to work. The first pass is just for bulking up shapes and filling in gaps.
She's gonna color match the skin. Yeah. See, they're all getting covered up. It's not gonna be like
The
Too
legs
bad.
need more bulking up than I expected, so to save an epoxy, I do the majority of bulking up with cheaper materials. In other words, scrap paper and hot glue. It worked out with the demon doll, right?
Watch what happens. Watch
What could go
watch
wrong?
the end result.
Epoxy sculpt takes anywhere from 3 to 7 hours to cure, depending on temperature and humidity. Once it does, it's time for the second pass. Now we can start the cosmetic sculpting.
Wait, what?
I flesh out the toe beans into
What?
claw shape
Mary, no.
and bulk up the horns.
Mary, no.
Dab water on your gloves and stroke the surface for a smoothing effect. Whether it's 2, 3, or 4 passes, build up and sculpt the details.
Ooh, those are gonna be so pretty. Oh, that's so cool.
You
Like
may
the
have
other
noticed one of my
design.
inspirations for this design was ancient Greece, for their ties to astrology and early mathematics. To make her appear more Greek, I build up that classic sloped nose shape that we see in ancient sculptures and in many Greek people today.
Yeah, she also goes through the effort of
Spent a
changing the
long
face
time on the
directly.
feet, trying to create a concave shape in which the claws could retract into. I was aiming for something like a cat's claw mechanism. I created 3 recesses, all with very thin walls. Temporarily screw the leg together with the nut on the outside of the body. Cover it up with epoxy and let that harden nice and solid before you remove the screw.
Yeah. Just chilling and chatting. Watching doll videos, because why not?
On the inside, lay down a snake of epoxy around the screw head and blend it in. This hides the screw and bolt from
It's
view,
streaming
so it looks
4K at
more like a real
720p.
leg, but it remains
60
detachable
frames.
in case you ever need to work on it.
I
or
can't go up
tighten
to
a joint.
1080p anymore.
All right, everything's been sculpted, so it's time to move on to sanding. We want our mods to flow seamlessly into the original doll. I start with a rough grain to scratch off the biggest bumps, and then work my way down to finer and finer grains of sandpaper, until both the epoxy and plastics are nice and smooth. At last, everything is smoothed. However, despite my best efforts on the claws, they just look icky. It's fine in the retracted position, but when the toes extend forward, they leave 3 gaping holes behind them. Something about it looks creepy, and it's not at all what I was aiming for. I should have planned that out better. Well, at least I gave it a shot. Take 2 on the legs. This time I'm putting the holes through the center of each toe and use sturdy wire loops, 1 per toe, to create the articulation. Each wire is then glued onto the leg and reinforced
I
with
know.
an epoxy sculpt.
It'll be
Then
over
it's back to
when the
Sanding
surgery is
Town,
over.
and a couple hours later, we've got a much prettier set of Tootsies.
That's a
Let's
lot
move
better.
on to the tail, shall we?
Hip dolls.
I measure how
Well, these
long
are
I
art
need the tail to
dolls.
be,
What do you
then cut a length
expect?
of wire twice as long so that I can fold it in half and twist it together for strength.
You doing the tail differently than the last one?
This end will go into the body, so I wrap the end together with jewelry wire to make sure it stays. That's a long tail. Because this dragon's body is smooth, not scaly, I was aiming for an unusual semi-alien skin look since she's a dark space-themed character, so I'm opting to give her a fabric tail over the segmented nesting cups look. Like I made for Vaporeon. One of the critiques I got on Vaporeon's tail is that the fabric scrunches up when I pose it. So to try and minimize scrunching, I'm going to cut out the fabric in the shape of the tail. I draw a pattern on paper and add seam allowance.
This is how she sews.
I'll need 2 tail pieces and 14 spikes. So front and back spikes together, essentially forming 7 triangular pockets. Then turn all the pockets inside out,
Oh.
and stuff a tiny amount of fluff inside to make him 3D. I'm using discarded fluff created from making yarn hair wefts. Run them under the machine 1 more time to seal in the fluff. And the spikes are ready to be sewn into the tail. Place them facing inside the tail and pin them in place. I want the spikes to gradually decrease in size as they go down her tail, so I pull the ladder spikes outward.
She does a good job at creating tutorials and teaching you how to use stuff.
Then lay the other half of the tail on top.
She's a good teacher.
Now we can stitch the tail together all the way around, but make sure to leave a gap.
Scober.
I cut off the excess and clip the curves of the fabric before flipping it inside out. Ta-da!
Man! Oh, you're going bye-bye,
Feeding
Mary.
it onto the wire and stuffing it at the same time was
See
a
you
little
later.
tricky because you want the wire to float in the middle of the plush tail, ideally. So I used long tools to stuff in fluff at both ends, trying to evenly disperse it around the wire. Mark her lower back and drill a big ol' hole in there. Using a smaller drill bit, I create a perpendicular hole through the sides of her body. That way we can run a wire through, catch the loop of the tail like this, and feed it back out the other side. Trim the wire down and set it in place with epoxy glue. With a needle and thread, I closed the gap in the tail and tried to bring the fabric in close to the body. The tip of her tail has a ball, which I've already made out of, you guessed it, wire and epoxy sculpt, which I stitched to the end of the fabric. The tail ended up a little bigger than I wanted, so to tighten the fabric at the end of the tail, I used the ladder stitch to bring in and cinch up the fabric.
Just gotta vibe into this.
Before we move on, I did make a couple more mods with epoxy. The tail looked detached, so I bulked up that area. I sealed the loose tip of the tail behind the ball, and I built up the doll's back to form a flat plateau shape in preparation for the wings. Alright, she's looking pretty good. Let's tackle the wings. Looking at my concept again, this dragon's wings are different. They're not supposed to look like flesh and bone. Rather, I was aiming to create negative space, as if you're looking into a void showing the vastness of space. I think this comes across in the concept art, so the question is how to translate that into real life. I want these wings to stay slim and flat, so to help keep the shape all the way out to the tips of the wings, I cut long curves out of cereal box cardboard. Then I glue on popsicle sticks, which are more sturdy. The pieces should slide easily over each other, so I glued the middle stick to the opposite side of the cardboard, like this.
It looks so good in the end.
Then drill all the holes.
I'm stretching because I'm still waking up, man.
Along with all those tiny screws and bolts, the last piece of the wings are the hinges.
Oh god, I've been quiet.
This is what the entire structure looks like before assembly. Remember this? Loctite will keep the nuts screwed tight onto the threads of the screws after it dries, so we don't have to worry about them loosening with use. I suspect the cardboard might warp over time, so as a precaution, I stitched a wire down the outside for strength. Similarly to how we made the tail, I used the armature to sketch up a pattern. The scalloped edges of the wing echo the mini curves of this doll's design. The horns, the orb, the spirals, even her limbs are smooth and rounded. The fabric I plan on using is this stuff. Look at it, it's so cool. That iridescent effect is mesmerizing. I cut out 4 pieces, 2 per wing. Right sides together, I sew all the way around the exterior, leaving a gap to turn the wings. My machine really didn't like this fabric. I don't know if I need a different setting or a different presser foot, but I gave up and did it by hand instead. It took longer, but whatever gets the job done. Clip the curves and turn it inside out.
I'm gonna delete this video this stream after on YouTube.
I press the seams to get them to lay flat, but this fabric really does not want to iron flat.
Oh yeah, go check out her channel.
Feed the structures into each wing, and then close the gap, snugging it up nice and close to the hinge. I like the shape, but they didn't iron flat, and the fabric is trying to poof out. How should we fix this? I pinned everything down and dotted on stars with white paint. Using the stars as markers, I take white thread and create small stitches that pass through both layers of the fabric, helping hold them together. To transition to the next star, I feed the thread in between the two layers before making the next stitch. This hides all the ugly stuff inside, and the front and back of the wings still look good. Eventually, with enough stitches, I felt the two sides of the fabric were securely attached and would no longer gap open. The puckering effect is somewhat undesirable, though. Did I just switch out one problem for another? Several constellations show up on her wings, which will be presented through embroidery. I stitch back and forth through both sides of the wings until the constellation is complete. Most of them I just made up, but this one's real. As another loose reference to Greece, I stitched an owl constellation onto her right wing. The owl is a well-known symbol of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, inspiration, mathematics, among other things. Because this character is meant to be an intellectual sorceress type, I thought it was a good match. This seems like a good time to glue on the wing spikes. Now we can start painting. Up until this point, they haven't really looked like space. Using black acrylic paint right out of the tube, I brush on the black and start forming a gradient. I dab black, dark purple, and blue around other random parts of the wings. Using white fabric paint, I dot on many, many stars to form that starry sky.
Much work she actually put.
I come back with light blue and lilac paint to pick out certain stars. If you look up into the night sky, you can see that stars come in all sorts of colors. So I find
with the
adding
way
a subtle
Restream
variety
works
to
right
the
now, I
whites
can't
makes it
see
look more
anybody's
realistic.
profile picture.
And last but not least, you
fixed
know they
that
gotta glow in
to
the dark. To keep with the color palette, I sought out and purchased this blue glow-in-the-dark paint. It's more opaque than I was expecting, but I guess that's fine.
Now. I'm gonna scream into chat and see if Restream stuff pops up. I think. Don't know, I screamed.
Back to
my
the
own
body.
chat.
That's right, I'm not done with you yet. We've used polyester fabric dye to dye hair on this channel before, but did you know you can dye the body as well? I've seen many fellow customizers try this with varying degrees of success, so it's about time I gave it a shot. I'll be mixing blue and red dyes to form a deep purple. That's right, these are the same dyes left over from Espion's hair. If you store them in glass jars, they last forever. Add enough dye and water to submerge the doll. For clearer instructions, feel free to pause and read the packet.
Welcome.
Bring it to a boil and keep it on a medium-high heat. Alright, here goes nothing. Just when I thought this hobby couldn't get any weirder. The head took the dye really well, and look at that, it actually dyed the epoxy too. I did not expect that to happen. In goes the body. Nice that I can use the tail as a handle. Might as well shove everything back in there and let it soak for a while. I waited about 20 minutes.
That is cool. I didn't know that was a thing.
Today on Cooking with Delightful. It seems to have taken very well. For experimental purposes, I popped Manny in there to see how Monster High bodies take the dye. Rinse off all the pieces with cold water and set them aside to dry. Let's see how they did. Very interesting. The colors came out differently depending on the original color of the plastic, of course, but it is interesting to see how different plastics absorb the dye. The Monster High legs and forearms didn't do so well, whereas the body and certainly the vinyl head absorbed a lot of color.
Damn.
Okay, you've probably noticed the weird globs coming out of her body. Yeah, that's the hot glue. It heated up in the hot water, melted, and oozed out of the crevices. Yikes. I'm honestly disappointed in myself for not predicting this. I should have seen this coming. I'll have to fix this before we can proceed. I reheat the body to remove stubborn bits of hot glue and re-squish the leg joints into place. Then it's yet another round of epoxy and sanding, which brings us to this point. At last, we can move outside to the airbrush station. I'll be using these Vallejo paints on the doll.
Pause the video. Gotta go to Twitch stuff.
Yeah.
It's just below standard.
Perfect. So now to continue on what we were.
What was the point of dyeing the doll if you're just going to paint her anyway? You're probably thinking. Well, if she'd taken the dye really well, I wouldn't have to be painting her black right now. Even so, the dye reached in and stained the joints, which are the most problematic areas when changing a doll's skin color. So if and when the paint rubs off around the joints, you won't notice the chipping as much. So I think it was worth it, despite the hot glue mishap. Seal in the paint with 2 to 3 layers of varnish. After the varnish, I usually use Mr. Super Clear Matte Sealant to get rid of the gloss, but I'm kinda liking the shine, on the body anyway. So I thought I'd try semi-gloss on the body and the usual matte sealant on the face. Yeah, MSC comes in a bunch of textures.
Damn.
Let's give her hair. This is Black Magic from dollyhair.com. Because she's got new ears and huge horns, there's not much real estate left on the scalp for hair. So to avoid a thin-looking reroot, I'm being generous with the amount of hairs per plug. Once everything's all filled in, I seal the deal with Galaxy glue. That's appropriate. I tie off her hair into ponytails so that I can keep track of the part, and then mask off her face in preparation for the face-up. She also gets a fresh coat of sealant. It was a fairly straightforward face this time. Very graphic and contrasty, with an emphasis on her spooky black eyes. I start off with watercolor pencils and soft pastels and work in some acrylic paints for that deep black opacity.
Already liking this face up. Hey Transformer Movie, welcome to the stream. How are you doing today? I'm just doing some watching this and kind of just chilling and chatting with chat if anyone joins. So, how's your day going, man?
I also use paints to build up the light gradient on the lower area of her face. I find it really difficult to get a smooth gradient with a brush. I wish I'd done this part with the airbrush. Eventually, with enough layers and a helping of pastels, it's good enough.
Damn. dragon doll
Those
out
bright
of the
moon-like
She-Ra
pupils
doll.
clearly need to glow in the dark as well.
That's what
So
she's
I'm
making.
delicately
This is
gluing on
delightful.
luminescent blue powder.
Delightful.
With Liquitex varnish, gloss the lips and eyes for a lifelike shine. Although I tried to cover it up with pastels, that crack along her forehead is really bothering me. I know it's not in the concept art, but I had to cover it up with something, so let's give her a mystical third eye, shall we? This is already a long video, but we still have paint jobs, clothes, and accessories to go. I value your time, so let's make this quick. Paint! I've painted fabric before with good results, but that was working from light to dark. Here I started with black fabric and had to build up a lot of paint to reach the level of opacity I needed. This made the fabric very stiff and the folds very noticeable. Clothes! Inspired by ancient Greek togas, I sewed together this garment out of 3 separate fabrics. My original plan was to paint on a nice gradient like I did for the tail, but to heck if I'm going to make that mistake again. So I sacrificed the smooth gradient look for more functionality. Using a simple macrame square knot, I wrap gray embroidery thread around the body of the doll to form decorative straps.
Damn.
I end the threads with beads. I use this bead because it looks like a planet.
Nice.
Accessories! One of the coolest parts of this doll is the nifty orb that floats between her horns. I want it to glow, so I mixed blue glow-in-the-dark UV powder into my mold. Everything sank to the bottom as it cured. For attempt number 2, I cured sections of the orb at a time, and after 3 sessions, it came out pretty good. I embedded a wire into this orb so that I could thread it around her horn for that levitating effect. Not one to waste materials, I turned the failed orb into a staff using a wood chopstick and wire.
Nice.
She also received a tiny manicure out of paper and glue. Alright, now we can combine all the pieces together. I heat up the head and cram it back on over the neck peg. Using the hot knife technique, I style the hair and press it flat. Finally, the wings screw into the back, and we can call this doll done. Say hello to our dark dragon, Neeks. Thanks to commenter Cass Wolf for the suggestion. To be honest, I imagined the dark dragon to be the oddball of the bunch. Like I hinted at earlier, I have clearer visions for Earth, Sea, Fire dragons, so it felt like the dark dragon would come last, and be the most different design. Maybe that's why it threw me for such a loop, having to design her first. Am I making sense? Getting experimental with your artwork is a good thing, something that should be encouraged. But that doesn't mean you're going to find success every time. I failed pretty hard at several points, but at least I learned from the experience.
Artists, I can resonate with that, damn. Such a beautiful doll. Alright, on to the next video. Same person, delightful. I paste her channel link.
Annyeong! Welcome to Delightful! Air Dragon time! Let's jump right into the concept art. I had a couple leads I wanted to pursue early on. When I think of air-related visuals, airplanes, birds, feathers, clouds, wind instruments, stuff like that comes to mind. I sketched up one design heavily inspired by Brazil's Carnival, but decided it was more Carnival than Air Dragon. I often wonder how far you can push the concept until it's not a dragon anymore. At what point do the scales tip over into harpy or fairy territory and stop being a dragon? Well, I think I found it in this character. Like, what even is this? I chose my favorite 4 designs out of these sketches and asked for your input. Design A was most popular, so I took some of your critiques and expanded that idea into 2 more designs. One with the 4 wings and one more inspired by a Chinese dragon. It was a close race, but the original came out on top. Then it was time to think about color. I knew a pastel color scheme would be best. Cloud white, bright sky blue. Actually, I wanted her short poofy hair to be white to look the most cloud-like, but I guess none of those color studies made it into the video.
We watched
Number
some other
2
stuff
won,
with the
so
doll
that's the doll
repaints,
we're going
but
to make.
right now this is what
And
I'm vibing
yeah,
to.
I sketched up this character and had y'all vote on it before I revealed my new hair, so what can I say? I'm loving my poofy short hair right now, so I hope you don't mind too much that it found its way into my concept art. Okay, with the concept set, let's pick out a doll. Monster High's Katrine Demieux doll should be a great base. She's a second-hand doll, and you can see the vinyl is yellowing around her forehead. This happens to all vinyl dolls over time, but it's always most noticeable on lighter-colored dolls. We'll paint over it later. Let's get customizing. As usual, we begin by stripping the doll down to its most basic form. Off with her hair, off with her face,
We'll have to do a
and
watch
off
order for
with her
stock
head.
box stuff.
You can see the default head is much too large for this project, so to match the other dragons, she needs a smaller head size, which is achieved through the delicate process of head shrinking via acetone. More detailed descriptions of how to do this can be found via links in the description box, but the gist of it is fully submerge the head in a glass jar full of acetone. I flip the head upside down and jostle it around to make sure the liquid enters the head through the neck hole. That's a sentence I never thought I'd have to say. Set your pickling head aside, preferably by an open window, and let it soak for 2 hours. Don't worry if you go over. I am the queen of the saying out of sight, out of mind, so inevitably I forgot about it, went to the gym, ate lunch, and when I remembered her 6 hours had passed. Sorry, Katrine, hope you enjoyed your acetone bath. The vinyl has absorbed the acetone and swollen up at this point, which means it's in a very delicate state. Gently fish it out to avoid tearing. After 24 hours of waiting, the head will have shrunken down again. As you can see, compared to this Abby head, it's more or less returned to the original size, so I repeated the process once again, and now it's finally shrunken down to the size I want. On to the body for the body modifications. I imagine the air dragon being the thinnest and most lightweight of the group, so I keep that in mind as I decide what new joints to give her. For example, bending the knee inward lets the doll sit back on its haunches, and it looks more realistic and weightier. I usually prefer this, but for our lightweight air dragon, I decided a simple digitigrade modification would suffice. And we can keep her monster high knees as is.
That'll mutilate the doll.
I start by whacking off the shins, then drill holes into the calves in preparation for the armature wire. Taking popsicle sticks, I cut them down to size and drill holes through the rounded ends. Go slow with the drill and don't apply too much pressure or it cracks the wood.
Love to make.
For each leg, I prepare 2 single sticks and 1 double thickness stick for our new joints. She's getting popsicle stick talons as well, so I prepare 4 claws per foot. Sanding down and rounding the edges of the wood is always a good idea. I don't know about you, but I'm really paranoid about splinters. I prepare the foot for its new toes by drilling all the way through the foot, making 1 hole per toe. I learned my lesson with Neeks not to try anything fancy for the toe
that's
articulation,
alright.
so let's keep it simple.
Right, if you have life that gets in the way.
This time I'm using much thinner jewelry wire to keep the size to a minimum. Each toe receives a loop of wire fed through the holes individually. This is the first dragon to have an opposable thumb claw, because I imagine she flies around and can snatch things off the ground like an eagle. Before fixing the legs with their new joints, I take the time to carve V-shaped grooves extending from the holes we drilled earlier. Usually, I'll be bulking it up with epoxy anyway, but to keep this doll thin, we need recesses the wire can fall back into. This way, when I feed the wire around and through the popsicle sticks, it sits back into the plastic and takes up no space at all.
Yeah, Mary.
The last stick that needs
Let's have me on
fixing
stream.
is the one
See you
sticking out of
next
the
time.
shins, so I carefully
A
drill
little
a hole
later,
into this
no.
double thick piece and extend
don't
the
know
hole
when you're
down the
coming back.
plastic shin as well. Ready some more armature wire and set the pieces in place. To reinforce the wire and make sure nothing shifts around, mix up a 2-part epoxy glue and work it into the crevices. Now, before the epoxy fully sets, it's a good idea to go ahead and screw the legs together so that the hinges are correctly aligned.
Oh yeah.
If it turns out you need more width on the hinges to match the length of your bolts and nuts, as I did, simply glue enough snippets of cardstock paper to the wood to bulk out the joint. And as usual, place the nuts on the outside and the bolt heads on the inside of the leg. Our character has a lot of skin showing, so at this stage it's worth cleaning up the imperfections of the factory-produced doll body. This is stuff like cutting off and sanding down the seam lines on the legs, arms, and torso, and removing the labels like R1, R3 from the arms. Phase 1 complete. The head is shrunk, and the new structures are in place. On to the sculpting phase. Using epoxy sculpt, I extract equal parts from A and B, mix them together, and get to work. Lay down a snake around the bolt's head to hide it from view. And place a solid blob of epoxy over the exterior nut part of the leg. Then it's just a matter of building up and filling in space around the armature. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to add a lot of material to this doll, so I'm sticking to the minimum amount required to flesh out her new toes and ankles. I gave the most care and attention to and around the toes. The jewelry wire is thin and hides well, but it's also weak, so I know I need to secure and protect it lest her toes snap off down the line. Build up thickness and walls between the toes on either side of the wire, and remember to move the toes around to clear a path for articulation. A couple artistic flourishes like tendons, and I think the legs are good to go. I mix up a fresh batch and begin sculpting her belly scales. I lay down a slab from top to bottom for starters and roughly draw out the scales. Then I can use my tool to push and mold the epoxy around these shapes to form the illusion of overlapping scales. About an hour after mixing the epoxy, it's in a semi-solid state, which makes it ideal for details. I use this window of opportunity to define the smaller scales on her neck. After threading and knotting a couple armature wires inside the head like this, I twist them together and form a skeletal structure for her horns. Then we add material. Because her design is very simple compared to other projects I've done, by which I mean she doesn't have any clothes or accessories I have to make, and she doesn't even have much texture on the sculpted parts, I managed to complete most of the sculpting in just the first pass. I kept her simple so that she would seem free and aerodynamic, if that makes sense. Her horns flow backwards and are smooth as to not cause any drag during flight. Stuff like that. You can see I intentionally left a single wire protruding from each horn. After the horns harden, I cut them down to size and use my jewelry pliers to create a small loop at the tip. These will be used to connect the streamers later on. Apart from sculpting onto the doll itself, there are a couple separate pieces we need to create, most notably her wings. I drew out a template on paper first, before coiling snakes of epoxy on top to form the wing shapes. Don't forget you can use water and light pressure to smooth the surface as you sculpt. In preparation for the wings, her back needed a built-up plateau-like structure for them to attach to. Had I screwed the wings directly into the recess of her back, the thickness of the wings themselves would have entirely restricted their movement. In other words, they needed more space to fold back and forth. I embed a wire armature for strength, just so the epoxy has something to hold on to, and mold the plateau shape. At this point, I also took the time to create hinges out of cat food can lids. It was kind of fun making them myself, but to be honest, the can lids were too malleable and not suited for making strong hinges.
Hi, welcome.
Even though I reinforced the weak areas with epoxy glue, I concluded they wouldn't hold up in the long run. I ended up ordering a ton of tiny hinges online and scrapped my homemade ones once they arrived. One more accessory we need to sculpt, and that is her bells. I really wanted to make the bells so that the inner ringer actually moves around, so here's what I came up with. Taking 2 short lengths of our trusty jewelry wire, I dab on a dot of hot glue to one end. I use pliers to make a loop on the other end. Then
I know the
that
doll
loop
looks
intersects with a
scary,
new wire loop, and we
but
get
this is just like when an artist.
These will be the
Well, this
ringers.
is an artist, but when a
I then proceed to
digital
sculpt the
artist
bell
does like a
shapes
sketch
and
and
let
it
those
doesn't
harden.
look all clean.
We'll
This is
finish
the
assembling these
version of
after
it.
the paint job.
So this is the underneath and stuff. You'll see what it looks like by
Once
the end
all
of it.
the epoxy has hardened, which for me took about a day and a half because cold weather slows down the curing process, we can buff out all the lumps and bumps with sandpaper. All the transitions from epoxy to plastic need to be smooth and seamless, which means a
That
lot of
time,
sanding around those transitional
2
areas.
hours. Probably go up by
It's a
that
good
time.
thing these Monster High girls are flexible.
Oh,
Will this demonetize me? Oh, and I
Oh.
should have mentioned this earlier, but I've been wearing a mask for most of this project. I even wear goggles when I'm sanding the epoxy. Safety first.
Safety.
Nice and smooth. Epoxy sculpting phase complete. Now we can move all our parts outside to the airbrush station. I'll be using Vallejo's brand surface primer in Blanco. If you've ever experienced working with an airbrush yourself, I probably don't need to tell you how much of a hassle they are. I clean it, I disassemble and reconstruct it, I do a test spray with water first, but no matter how much care and attention I give this thing, it never behaves. I wrestled with the darn thing for 2 hours, barely getting it to spray anything at all and freezing my fingers off in the cold winter air. Eventually enough was enough, and I said, to heck with it, it's not worth this level of frustration, I'm just gonna paint it myself. You gonna be like this airbrush? Fine, I don't need you. A paintbrush and
I
gesso
am
is just as
watching
good and
a
a whole lot less
doll
stressful. Sure,
paint
maybe you
video.
can see paintbrush strokes
This
and
is
it's not
creating an
velvety
air
smooth,
dragon.
but I
She's
should have done this
creating
from
an
the
air
start and saved
dragon, so-
myself half a day of work.
Air dragon doll.
At any rate, she's fully white now, and the epoxy modifications have blended in seamlessly with the
Just
plastic
going
base.
ham on the.
Because the doll was white to begin with, we needn't worry about paint chipping off the joints and revealing an inappropriate color underneath. So that's nice. The brush strokes are there, and if that really bothers you, you can always sand down fully dried gesso and make it smooth again. Now the decorating begins. I had a lot of fun with this part because I've really been in a painting mood lately. With my palette and colors mixed up off to the side, I paint on a gradient of sky blue to mint green on her belly scales. I also apply sky blue to her talons, nails, and horns. Just as with Aurora, I mixed up shadow colors and highlight colors to bring out the sculpting and clearly define the edges of the scales. I paint a darker color directly beneath the scale, then go back and paint on a lighter
know, I'm
color
kinda
on the top
talking
of the scale's edge.
When I just
This really makes the paint job feel
to my
polished
fiance
and sharp.
currently sleeping, so
One of my favorite parts of this design is the very subtle swirly lines all
Usually
over the white
loud.
areas of her body. As you probably guessed, these lines are supposed to represent wind
But I should
flow
wake up
blowing
here.
and swirling around
so
as a
we should be
pattern on her
fine.
skin.
Oh, there
I
goes my
mostly
voice.
made it up as I
I'm
went,
talking
but I
more.
did keep in mind the anatomy of her legs. Generally, if your design flows with the natural curves of the muscles, it comes out great. So you can see I put a big swirl on her hip, which somewhat flows down the thighs and into a swirl at her knees. Everything has been painted, so mix up a varnish plus water solution and give each piece 2 coats of the stuff. 3 on the parts you know are more likely to get hit or damaged, like the toes and horns. Once that dries, you can see the body looks very glossy, and I'd like to tone that down a bit.
I do want
But
to
I'm
do
going to
dull
spray the
repaints,
doll
but I
with
currently don't
semi-gloss
have the
Mr. Super
funds
Clear
to
this
do
time. That's right, not the
some
usual
stuff.
matte spray.
One of these
Why?
days, though.
I'm hoping
I
to
have a
give her
feeling
body
it's going
a
to be like a
satin-like
fun
finish
hobby
in
that
order
I'm
to
gonna
match
have.
this fabric, which I intend to
Something
use for
that
her
just
tail.
relaxes me and all that good stuff.
I've never tried this finish before. How will it look on the face? What kind of texture will it give the body? Exactly what does semi-gloss really mean? Yeah, it looks exactly as shiny as before. Before you start a face-up on a painted doll like this, I highly recommend reuniting the head to the
Oh, is
body
my eye
before you
bugging
begin.
out?
Because we shrunk the head,
Oh,
the
yeah.
neck peg is now too
Eyes
large,
bug
so
out.
whittle it down to size.
That's alright, though.
Especially if
The
it's a
worries of
shrunken
being
head,
made, too.
cramming a custom head back on over a neck peg is one of the most tense parts of doll customizing. Whew, okay, not too bad. Face-up time. It became apparent right away that the pencils refused to draw on a semi-gloss surface. I lifted the colors off the pencils and applied it with a thin paintbrush instead. I managed to get the rough sketch of the eyes onto the face, but fairly quickly I decided to make the switch to acrylic paints instead. Much like all the other shapes in her design, her lash line is also rounded. I wanted all design aspects of this character to be rounded or curved, no sharp edges. One nice thing about her being gesso white is that I can touch up mistakes on her face using paint right out of the jar. I don't have to remix a specific color. She'll have pink hair, so she gets pink eyebrow blobs. I think I actually got him pretty symmetrical this time.
Why didn't you just spray on the clothes after the face-up?
No other reason besides, hey, I think this will look cool. I gave her white
Yes,
pupils.
I don't hide my face.
I was pondering at this
Only
point
reason
if
it's like
perhaps
this because my
character's
environment
design
is
was too
not
simple,
set up
so for a
to
little
be
flair I
on
ad-libbed
camera
a
at the
lilac
moment.
cheek stripe below both
One
eyes.
of these days, my camera will be back on. And
I
this
was worried I
model
wouldn't be
and
able
the
to
other
turn
stuff is all
Katrine's
just for
downturned lip
when
mold into a smile, but I think I got away with it.
when I don't want to do makeup or
Let's
don't
set her
want to
aside
like
for
do
now
my
and
hair.
finish up the other parts.
I'm not one of
starting
the
with the wings.
VTubers
I cut out
who's
the
like,
shape of the wing on scrap paper
yeah.
to form a template. Now, what exactly should the wings be made out of? Felt.
but I haven't
It's
hidden
stiff
my
enough to keep the
face.
shape, but flexible enough not to break when the doll inevitably falls off a table or something.
Look hard enough.
It's perfect. I cut out two shapes and spiced them up with a paint job of blues and whites.
But I never hid my actual face from the beginning.
I adhere the epoxy parts to the felt using a generous amount of glue. Once that's fully dry, I screw the hinges into the epoxy.
That's pretty.
I should mention here that I drilled a small hole into the wings first. Also, I'm only using one of the holes on the hinge so that the wing can swing back and forth and be articulated. It's true that the hinge isn't an ideal shape for what I'm trying to make here, but what can you do? Let's make her tail. I fudged up the fabric tail method so badly with Neeks that I felt the need to redeem myself. Using my heavy-duty wire, I measure out the length of the tail I want, double the length of wire, and twist it back on itself. You can tell from how dirty my hands are that this wire comes with some sort of coating, which obviously I don't need for a project like this. This blackening effect felt especially dangerous for a white doll, so I decided to take the time and hide the wire. Also, the satin fabric is semi-transparent, and I wouldn't want the dark black wire to be visible on the finished tail, so hopefully this hides it. Next, I draw a rough pattern for the tail and cut two pieces from the white satin. The tail
It
needs
is by
fluffy pink and
delightful.
blue
Let
fur
me
going
post the
down the
link
spine,
again
so
because
pink and blue
I
fur we
pasted
must
it.
create. I made a plentiful amount of wefts using Mosekito's acrylic yarn weft making technique. Brush, straighten, cut, and glue until you have enough. I made a couple multicolored wefts so that the color shift appears more natural on the tail.
There's Delightful's link.
Do you think that's enough?
Recommend checking out their content. They do a lot of hard.
Peel off your wefts, cut them down to size, and they're ready to use. Arrange the wefts down the tail. You can overlap and double them up for thicker fur. In order to sew this, I flip all the wefts upside down and sandwich them between the two tail pieces. Ideally, you want to sew all the way around the tail, leaving a gap and turning it right side out for a finished product. But with all this fur sticking out, I didn't think I could manage that. So I only sewed down the spine of the tail, affixing the fur wefts to the satin. I sewed down the spine 3 times, just to be sure. Turn it right side out, and now we can sew the other side. Creating a finished edge from the right side of the fabric isn't easy, but it is possible thanks to the ladder stitch. To make the process easier, I fold over and pin the seam allowance down on each side. Then start working my way down. If you take your time and try to keep the stitches even, the end result looks fairly clean.
I love doll for some reason. It's so cool. Watching
The tail sack is done, so let's insert the bone and bulk it up with fluff. Because the satin is semi-transparent, I'm only using white fluff to stuff the tail this time. The tip of the tail isn't as pointed as I'd like, oops, but I think we can hide this awkward area with a little more fluff to finish out the tail. Using those same wefts, we can give our air dragon hair. Working from base to crown, I lay down one weft at a time. To form the part, take your densest wefts and lay one down facing the wrong way like so. Mush it down real good, and once dry, it can be turned over for a beautiful finished edge. Repeat for the other side.
Really creepy.
Fill in the gaps.
Someone who doesn't usually watch,
And
like,
voila!
all
A nice
videos and
presentable
stuff.
part.
I understand that.
Trim up the hair and create curls using a heated chopstick. Easier said than done, I know. Hextian makes it look easy.
Oh yeah, he does.
Especially on short hairstyles, I find them the hardest to style. But with enough patience and perseverance, I managed a decent outcome.
Oh, that is cute.
So poofy!
It is! So puffy.
Remember the bells? Feed the ringer through the hole, and there we go. Pretty charming, right? It does make a sound,
We're gonna
but
be
of
watching
course
a
it's not
regular
quite
one
right.
other than her turning dragons.
I affixed the bells to the
That's just
horns
what I'm
using a
grabbing.
ribbon that's glued in place because it kept trying to slide up off the horn if it was just tied on. After trimming and heat sealing the ends of the ribbons, I linked them to her horns via those loops we made earlier. I love the way they dangle. Plug the tail into a hole in her back and set it with more epoxy glue. Screw her legs back on. Screw her wings on like this. And she's done.
E. Difference in the dolls. Serious difference.
Say hello to Zeffy, the air dragon. I nearly forgot about her little fang, but thankfully remembered to slap one on right before we took her out for a photo shoot.
Really pretty. Like, air dragon. I've never seen anyone like do that type of. Alright, now that that's over, on to the stock box first, which she randomly creates a stock box.
Stock box.
Don't know what she's gonna
Annyeong! Welcome to Delightful. What do you say we kick off Stock Box Season 2? That's right, it's once again time to hit the ground running and bring new life to discarded toys and scrapped projects. This is how it works. We grab a junker doll from the stock box, and with no planning or forethought whatsoever, we dive in and create a fully fleshed out character. It can go smoothly, there can be mistakes, but either way, it's a fun creative exercise. What better way to start off than by completing the failed moth girl from last time? I'm pretty sure she's in here somewhere. If I didn't get around to finishing her, it would have bothered me forever, so let's make her the first episode of Stockbox Season 2. Ah yes, I finished the
How to
reroute
become
and
a
then changed
member.
my mind.
What do you mean?
Like so many projects, I left the poor thing in pieces. Well, let's see if we have better luck this time. To the work table! Seeing as how I blew it on the color scheme last time I made the clothes, I thought I'd play it safe and stick to a simple color palette. Yellow and purple. Complementary colors. I already plugged a couple pink and green streaks into her hair, so those can be small accent colors. But for the most part, I want purple to dominate. I decided I'd make her a simple sundress and pair it with a fluffy, puffy jacket to evoke a cute, fuzzy moth. The sundress pattern is pretty easy, basically a lined bodice connected to a circle skirt. I chose this one because it doesn't have any sleeves, which will make wearing her jacket a lot easier. pattern calls for a whopping 78cm strip of continuous fabric for the skirt ruffle, and I
Damn.
don't have enough fabric for that. Do I have any purple lace that would work instead? No. Well, I guess I'll patch strips of fabric together until I reach 78cm then. I went back and forth with a slightly different purple fabric because I just didn't have enough of the magenta stuff, and hopefully the color variation will look cool.
Hopefully.
With all the pattern pieces cut, I sew up the side seams and line the sweetheart bodice.
Oh, that's gonna be so good.
After running a gathering stitch down the ruffle, I scrunch it up to match the circumference of the skirt. Then I pin it down. I pin the ruffle down on both ends first and then in the middle. If you section it off like this, you can get the ruffles distributed more evenly around the circle without too much finagling and repinning. Flip the ruffle's pretty side out. Ta-da!
Nice.
As I was sewing, I started thinking this looks too plain. I know I said I wanted a simple color palette, but that's a lot of purple. Suddenly struck with inspiration, I opened up Photoshop and drew up these eye-like jewel designs. Eyes because moths have eye-like patterns on their wings, you know, and jewels because pretty. I printed them out on my last scrap of fabric transfer paper. I actually taped it to a sheet of printer paper to feed it through my machine, and I can't believe that worked. I cut them out and placed them around the skirt. And yeah, looks like I drastically overestimated how many I'd need. Then I just followed the instructions. Peel off the back, cover, and press with a hot iron.
Jade, what do you want, kitty? My cat's
There
like,
we go. Back to the table. I knew I wanted a pretty lace design, but X-Acto knifing delicate lace patterns out of paper sounds like a nightmare, so I figured I'd just paint it on instead. I draw a mock-up in pencil. That looks good. Then brush the design on with white acrylic paint.
I really love the pattern.
I was having fun and feeling it, so I mixed up a light pink too, and filled in some of the negative space and added dots. Pretty fancy looking, right? And at last we can finish sewing the dress together. Add a strip of Velcro on the back, and it's done.
There we go. That's a cute dress.
Now for the coat. I'm going to modify the oversized hoodie pattern I have for this one. Basically, I ended up leaving off the hood and cutting the front and side pieces in half to form a crop top jacket. I wanted something a little fluffier than this fabric, but my fluffier fabric was off-white, and this stark white matches the lace pattern on her dress, so I guess it'll do. This item of clothing is pretty simple too, just 4 pieces. Sew fronts to back at the shoulder seam, attach the sleeves, then zip up the side seam. We're not done with the fuzzy fabric yet though. Besides the antenna and wings, one of the mothiest things I can think of is that super poofy ring of fur around a moth's neck, like it's wearing a cozy scarf.
Jade, shut up.
So I sewed a tube of fabric, stuffed it, and added snaps to get
Tell my
this.
cat to be quiet. I love my kitty, but damn.
What do we do about shoes? I found these relatively simple white shoes that should match with a little paint. They're mermaid themed though, which, although adorable, doesn't match our moth. I cut down the fins and shave off the details until we have a simple pair of pearlescent pumps. Let's paint those soles, you guessed it, purple. 2 layers should do. How about cloth wings for the shoes to make them fancier? I paint glue onto the last remaining scrap of purple fabric, then cut out 2 tiny wings. The glue helps keep the fabric from unraveling. A little paint detail, and hot glue them to the shoes. Oh, that's cute!
Oh, that
I
is
kind of have a
cute.
pair of shoes like this actually. After trying them on the doll though, they just don't pop, do they? I love a pearl finish, but it sort of gets lost and blends in with the yellow skin, doesn't it?
Oh, but yeah.
Well, I had a thought.
Your
What if her
reaction to-
shoes are also fuzzy?
Yeah.
Would that be weird?
Action
Furry shoes?
I
Oh,
don't
why
think
not?
action
Let's try it.
content.
my gosh, plush pumps! I love them! Pop the wings back on, and the shoes are good to go. We're on a roll. How about a purse next? I've got a bunch of leftover jewel eyes, so I felt somewhat obligated to use more of them. What say we put a big one smack in the center of her bag? The whole purse could even be an oblong eye shape. I cut a front and back out of cardboard, then cut a rectangle of cardboard the length of the bottom. That way we glue it together to make a bag. I did use hot glue for this. I always feel bad using hot glue because we all know deep down it's not a high quality material to craft with, but it's so fast and easy. My love-hate relationship with hot glue continues. Using jewelry fasteners, I tie one loop to a long cotton thread, then glue it to the corner of the bag. The thread goes under the bag and around the other side. This will become the strap.
Oh.
Let's thread a whole bunch of tiny beads on here to make it look nicer. This might take a while. Finally, tie the fastener on the end and shove the remaining tail of the thread back into the beads if you can manage it. It makes everything look clean and tidy. Next, I glue on the eye right in the center there. And add more fluff. That's right, more fluffy accessories. You can't stop me.
Can't stop
and her
the
bag
artist
is done.
from creating.
The wings. Do you remember the wings? It took me a while to dig them up, but thankfully I still had them. Beautiful as they may be, they need to match our new moth girl, so white they must become. I was going to paint them, but when the articulated wings pass by each other, they scrape against each other slightly. See, the paint comes off pretty easily. So instead of paint, let's glue fabric on instead. I coat the wing with glue, press down one face at a time, then cut the fabric to shape. I love how the molded veins show through even under the fabric. It gives them an embossed feeling. I also like how the fabric makes the wings look heavier, just like a moth's. I enjoyed the effect of the subtle veins on the wings so much that I didn't want to cover it up, so I went with a very simple pink dot design to finish them up. Do you think it looks too minimal? Watching this back now, I wonder if I should have done a fancier eye design or something.
Nope.
Last accessory, her antenna. Antennae? These will be made using acrylic yarn. If you've watched doll customizing videos before, you're likely familiar with the drill. Cut lengths of yarn, brush them out with a pet brush, iron them down to bring out that silky sheen, and voila, doll hair. Although this time I'm using them for antenna, not wigs. Taking an unwound paper clip, I dab a small amount of glue to the tip and place it in the center of one of the wefts. Fold it in half over the wire. I thought this was going well until the glue dried and left a nasty, clear, yellowish color behind. You can also still clearly see the wire, which doesn't look great. So I whack them off and try again. This time placing the wire on one side of the fibers. This will be the back side. I tried to cover the remaining silver wire with paint, then cut the fluff to size. So cute! Alright, that just leaves her head, which has been sitting around for months now. I gave it a fresh rinse with soapy water just to start out with a clean surface again, then bundle the hair away behind a barrier scrap of fabric. Use pins around the hairline to make an accurate mask around the face. I used to spray sealant on the doll right away, but these days I find you can get away with nothing but bare plastic on the first layer. The pastels in particular tend to lay down well regardless. So I brush on mint green eyeshadow and purple lips. Now we can take her outside for the first layer of sealant. Don't forget to protect yourself with a filtration mask. If you ever want to know what materials and equipment I'm using, everything is listed in the description box below this video.
I have a timer going.
Once the sealant is dry after a good 30 minutes, it's time to continue. I start off by scratching in some rough lines in a magenta pencil. The original doll's designers made her eyes intentionally large like an insect, so I want to keep that size and give her huge, round, jewel-like eyes. I was thinking about the faceted surface of jewels and how they look similar to an insect's eyes. I also have this crazy fun pair of glasses that probably got me thinking about it.
Oh jeez.
After sketching in the creases of the eyelids, some faint eyelash lines, and rough placement of the eyebrows, I switched to a deep purple and began darkening the lines. It's always a good idea to start with a lighter color first because it's easier to erase and change your mind early on. I also block in some rough jewel tones in the eyes, such as mint green, blue, and more purple. Once the pencils feel like they've stopped building color, it's time for another spray of sealant. Think about it like making a new layer in Photoshop. The green eyeshadow on the yellow skin makes her look a bit sickly, so I'm trying to coax the color over to the blue side with some more pastel. Then it's back to building up the opacity and darkening all those lines.
Eyebrows go over.
I tried my hand at highlighting this time around by dusting on white pastels on her forehead and below her eyes. I thought maybe a highlighting effect would help her face look more lively? I don't know. To be honest, I struggled with the yellow skin for the whole project. All I could think about was how I didn't want her to end up looking like a Simpsons character. And now we turn to gouache paints. I mix up a couple pastel shades on the palette, and start by filling in the whites of her eyes and blocking in those color blocks in the iris. Then I thought, hey, maybe I can fluff up the eyelashes with gouache too. I didn't do half bad, although they nearly got away from me. They came out a lot larger than I wanted, but hey, I guess she's just glamorous. Let's get in real close and render her jewel eyes. In my very, very short-lived career working in the games industry before I switched to YouTube full-time, I once developed an environment concept full of ice crystals and gem-like structures. I credit this project with making me buckle down and learn to draw jewels quickly. The key is to include pretty color gradients and lots of sharp contrasting edges. After all that practice of studying real photos of jewels, I find that it's not too difficult to whip one up out of my imagination these days. That's not to say her eyes are flawless. Looking at the footage now, I should have pushed the contrast more. They came out a bit dark overall.
They're alright, I like them.
Now for the finishing touches. I dot on a small shine this time, and decided why not give her teeth. I was going for a shy smile. After 2 final layers of Mr. Super Clear Sealant, paint Liquitex High Gloss Varnish on top of her irises and lips. So shiny. And that's the face up done! Now we can unmask her hair and reunite her head with her body. Maybe I should have done this before the face up. There's always a risk of damaging your paint job when cramming the head back on. I heat up the neck hole with a hairdryer first, then ease it on over the peg. Gently squeeze the temples to keep the face from distorting as you shove it back on. Give her a trim. Stab in the antenna. And our moth girl is finished!
She's so cute. She's so cute. Go through Hexington's videos. There it is. Go through his channel. See, let's go through some of this video. Ellie has a completely different style than Delightful. Let's see, let's do I'll start with the question Jessica Adams.
You're here, I'm queer, and I guess welcome back to this channel.
Guess those skits.
Hello, if you're unaware, my name is Wednesday Adams, and I'll be presenting you this haunting doll. I usually prefer my dolls to be headless, like my Marie Antoinette, so unfortunately, this doll will not be in my collection. Hexton created this doll in the image of my mother, so I guess there are some redeeming qualities to it. He decided to take inspiration from various depictions of my mother.
I forgot he was a
Morticia
drag queen.
Adams. The prominent inspiration is Angelica Houston's portrayal in the 90s, and I do agree that hers is the best one yet.
Don't like
It was
this.
very haunting, and her gaze alone can open the gates of hell. For the concept, Hexton exaggerated the waistline, groundbreaking, to create this alluring silhouette, and he also made sure to include the hobble aspect of her dress. My mom's dress is a hobble dress, which makes her seem like she's floating while walking. Never know, maybe she is. But this was a short-lived trend in 1908 to 1914. The back has this detox-inspired lacing to make sure that the dress fits like a glove.
That sound.
Hexton wanted to maintain the elegance, poise,
Why did he have to do
allure,
that?
and darkness. And I think
I
he
hated
did an
that sound.
okay
I
job.
hated it.
This doll would have been more beautiful if he decided to cut off her head, but that's just me. But really, imagine if she was headless. That's a sight for sure. I think that's enough for this intro. I know Hexton likes to bore you with his long intros, but I need to go. Pugsley and I will be playing a game, you see. It's called Is There a God? Before I go, let me present you the other artists and their dolls for this Halloween collaboration. I command you to check out Anastasia Custom, Delightful, Doll Motion, Doll's Brand New Look, Heroes Workshop, Moonlight Jewels, and The Doll Fairy. All of their links will be 6 feet under, so click it if you dare. With that being said, enjoy the video, and also, wear your god masks. So the victim for this video is going to be this model muse. I don't know, she was actually thrifted. So, but you know, she's a model muse. I love her. Look at her golden locks. Oh my god, the jewelry, everything. But her body, as you can see, it's a little rough. The tape from the costume, there's stains in her arms, like, you know. I do love her pose though, because it's a little bit more of a unique, well, it's not that unique, but you know, it's different. But yeah, these tapes, they need to go. So we're gonna have to wash her up and give her a spa time. Let's go and chop off all of her hair because Morticia has beautiful raven black hair, and so we need to make a wig for her. So yeah, let's go ahead and remove all of her hair. Okay, can I just say, like, this makeup look is actually stunning. Like, wow, Barbie, come through. But let's go ahead and remove that with our acetone or nail polish remover. And now we can go ahead and move on to the body, so we can chop off her waist and snatch it all the way in. Even though Wednesday Adams is being shady, it's a must. That silhouette, it's a must. Why do I feel like at this part Gomez would be like, "Are you in unbearable pain? Is it inhuman? My darling, is it torture?" And then Morticia would be like, "Wait." And After some splits, we have her waist completely removed, snatched, and I'm gonna go ahead and take some wire to kind of piece it together. This will be like kind of like a spine, but it's a good guide for the clay later. It gives it more stability and structure. I try to kind of level it out so that she gets the same exact height from the piece that we removed, but you can definitely make it shorter, make it taller, whatever. And I'm just adding hot glue to the bases of the wire so that they actually stand and kind of stick out. I just fill up her torso with pom-pom balls so that we can just kind of glue it. I don't want the entire thing to be completely glued, so the pom-poms will act as a filler, you know? Now let's go ahead and take our epoxy sculpt and combine both parts together so we can create this sturdy clay, and that will act as her new body and her new waist. So let's go ahead and sculpt that. As you can see, I protect the rest of the body with plastic and tape because this stuff can get everywhere and it will dry, and yeah, it's not a good texture if you do it accidentally. So make sure to protect other things that you're not working on. I wanted to reference Vampira for Morticia's waist, and that's why I'm adding a little bit more of a points at her hip to really exaggerate the waistline. I feel like when you have a bigger hip, it makes your waist a lot smaller. And I am gluing her legs completely shut because I want to extend, the hip area a little bit further down. So we just want to super glue that completely, and after it dries, let's go ahead and continue with the body modifications.
There's not as much talking in these ones as there.
And now we are finished with a body modification. This took roughly maybe a day or two in order for it to dry. But now let's go ahead and sand it. As you can see, it's a little bit more rough around the edges, and we want to make it smooth. We want to blend it out to give a seamless effect. Let's take a break from her body and let's move on to the wig making process. As you can see, I made a wig cap over here, and I'm just gluing black yarn wefts onto her wig cap. You always want to start from the bottom, as always, especially if it's kind of like longer hairs. And I'm adding a styro on top just to give her head kind of like that illusion that it's bigger, it's taller. I don't know, I thought it would be kind of cool. At one point, her hair looked like it was almost very Elvira-ish because it was kind of really, really big, so I had to really tone it down and made the rest of her hair kind of flat. I mean, hey, Elvira, iconic. Now I'm taking this pan pastel in raw umber tint, and we're gonna go ahead and recolor Morticia's body. Of course, for this to work, you have to spray the entire body with Mr. Super Clear. So I believe this, overall, recoloring her skin, it took maybe 10 layers, because going lighter in anything really takes a while to build up, and I'm surprised that this is already kind of changing. I did not film every single layer, so you guys won't really see it, but yes, this took at least 10 layers. Also, FYI, wear a mask whenever you're doing this, because honestly, oh my goodness, I was just inhaling all the powders, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna wear a mask. Now, the original doll mold, her features was just really, really, really soft, as you can see. So over here, I have a Gal Gadot head, a Wonder Woman head, and I thought it would look really, really cool. She has high cheekbones, prominent nose, fuller lips, and I feel like it would look better as Morticia, especially because I am referencing Angelica Houston's Morticia specifically, and she does have stronger features, and I thought that was just really, really beautiful, and I'm like, you know what? Let's go for the Wonder Woman Gal Gadot face mold. I just cleaned her up, and again, let's go ahead and take off her factory paint
And yeah, see, as in the process, when you're in the middle of doll making, you can still change your mind when it comes to things. And so yeah, this is one of those. So of course, we have to match her new skin tone to her face. So again, I sprayed this with Mr. Super Clear and I went on with the Pan Pastel. And this roughly took maybe 5 layers to just completely change her skin tone. But, you know, but because of movie magic, it took 1 second. Now let's go ahead and start with Morticia's face. As usual, we want to start kind of light, and because we are working on layers and layers of pastel and Mr. Super Clear, you want to be extra careful and extra soft-handed when it comes to doll repainting and the face up, because you don't want to scratch off the layers and the pigments, you know? But the expression, I just want her to really have a high brow. I want her to look aloof, as always. I feel like all of my dolls look aloof and just kind of like mean, which I love. And
okay,
yeah.
Hexing tits. Going through his stuff, so. There you guys
One of my
go.
favorite parts when the doll has a natural high cheekbones or a defined cheekbones, I love to contour it even more because it just highlights the cheekbones, you know? I wanted to keep her eye makeup a little bit neutral but also smoky. I guess my definition of neutral and natural just really doesn't apply to everyone else. But I wanted to highlight her brow bone. I want to give her a bloodshot, like blood red type of lips. And of course, we need to go ahead and give her some sharp eyeliner and eyeshadow. I definitely just wanted the illusion that her eyes is smoky, and I'm just using browns, blacks, some blues here and there, but you know, it's neutral colors for Miss Morticia Addams, because you know, she's gray. I really wanted her eyes to look menacing and evil, but also captivating, because obviously we have to give her the Dracula lighting effect on the eyes. Morticia always had that in the 90s, and I thought that was so clever and amazing looking. Even though she's not a vampire, I wanted her eyes to have a base of red, even though I will be darkening it, and it will mostly look black in the end. But I just wanted to kind of have that undertone, that red undertone, because I thought it would look really, really cool. And now let's go ahead and contour the rest of her face with more grays and maybe blacks, actually, some here and there. And, you know, we just want to really define her features. And I'm also highlighting her cheeks and her undercut. Oh my god, she's looking like a drag queen. And that's iconic. That's amazing. Brava, cara mia! I also want to contour and highlight some of her décolletage. Model Muse bodies are kind of really defined and beautifully sculpted, as you can see over here. So these are all molded and they're sculpted. And I love that. I love to highlight it. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
No cover was better.
I don't think Morticia needs oxygen, but let's go ahead and define her nostrils, just in case. And I'm also contouring her nose just to really define it. As you can see, I highlighted it earlier, and we'll do some more of that. And we're just pretty much done, and we're just going back and forth, adding more details, finessing the details, and also building up the color. And now let's go ahead and give her some cat eyeliner. So beautiful, very sharp. You know, as sharp as it can be. It matches her death stares, and it's beautiful. I'm contouring under her eye just to kind of make it look more deep set.
Imagine how long this takes to do.
Like she doesn't sleep, you know, she doesn't see the sun. Really a lack of vitamin D, but yeah, it's just, I like it. I like the undead look on her. And to make her lips a little bit more bloodshot and kind of like darker, kind of like ox blood, I'm adding black shadows onto it. And now I'm just adding a hint, a little bit of catch lights, a little bit of life in there with white acrylic paint. But I did think about it first because I'm like, she looks really good without them. But you know, a little life doesn't hurt. And now I want her skin to glow. I want it to glitter. I want it to glisten. And so starting with her cheekbones and her face, I'm using Pearlex powders. And also the resin powders, because those are really, really good highlighters because they don't really come off after spraying Mr. Super Clear. So it's amazing. You do have to layer it still. And I mixed white and silver for this one. And of course, also her hands. I didn't bother with the rest of the body, just the ones that's showing. And now let's go ahead and gloss up her lips. Although she looks good without the lashes, I can't help myself, so I'm using individual fake human lashes to give her the windows, the curtains to the eyes, I think? Because, you know, yeah, the curtains to the eyes. And of course, you want to trim and shape the lashes, but now we are finally done with Morticia Addams' visage. And I just put the wig on as a preview so we can kind of see and get an idea, and I love it. Her skin is glowing, her cheekbones are popped, her eyes are menacing, it's alluring. My goodness. Now let's go ahead and work on her outfit. Now this beautiful dress was created by That Plastic Biz on Instagram, and oh my goodness, this was definitely a collaboration because we were just kind of like throwing ideas at each other, and my thing is that I wanted to make sure that it is a hobble style dress. I want it to be very, very tight, very fitted, and they suggested to add the lace-up detox moment, detox reference to the back so that I can really reshape Morticia's body and it will still fit like a glove. I did add these wire inside, and I kind of made the cut a little bit more deeper because, you know, we love a plunging neckline, and I added the wire there so that it can bend and it can kind of like shape with her, you know.
I know, we're
breast
watching
pieces.
next.
And so yeah, I'm
We're
really,
watching,
really excited
on
to
Nibbles
show you guys
videos.
how I cut the fringes. Yeah, because the work is pretty much done.
Okay. I think I'm gonna just back off from doing videos right now because I've been binging them all morning.
Hey.
Welcome to this side of YouTube. I'm gonna post Monty Wolf's channel so you guys can get the gist of what he is. He's a furry like I am. Yeah. Put that out of the way. Monty Wolf.
Hey baby, do I work?
Hey.
Wait, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, how do you know my name?
I don't know. Wait, is it actually? So I actually like guess because.
Nah, there's no way you guessed.
No. Like actually, so okay, so you see the door above you. There's.
Yeah.
I assume those are initials. So what's the first name that came to mind? Not gonna lie, that's exactly what I said.
You
I don't know.
censored
That'd
it.
be really funny
Just
if that-
like
is
a
that
big old
actually it, though?
censor.
Yeah.
Why?
It is.
Videos is something more inappropriate. Oh god.
What the fuck?
I don't know, man. We're very caffeinated right now in the stable.
I'm partially drunk. I'm drunk. Slap him in the face.
Well, we're gonna go back to doing stable things in Stable Land. You have fun with your alien on your back.
Who's the fox?
I call Fox. Signal's definitely the horse.
Oh. Am I the barrel?
Yes, you are. I've never actually seen it, so I don't know how it goes. I just know there's a fox and there's a stable, and then there's a horse that it like strikes through that door. Oh, we're talking about.
You don't want to know.
Meow.
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 Why am I in VR chat?
Why?
Kawaii mode.
Hey. How the fuck y'all do that?
Technology.
Y'all want to play rock paper scissors?
Oh shit. Oh god.
Dude, I bet.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Fuck.
Hey.
Okay, wait. Everything else, right? Why the fuck are y'all foxes? Like some fucking furries and shit.
Because we are furries.
Furries.
Oh my gosh, it's me! I was literally so amazing!
Oh my god, you're one of us.
Is it because my little cat ears?
Exactly.
How long have you been doing this?
22 years.
Jesus, you're old.
Me?
I am old.
No, this one's old.
That one? Oh my god, there's 3 of you!
Yeah, hi.
There's a tiny one! Oh my god, don't move closer to me!
Let me chat.
He's gonna be Where's an anime for your logo?
Do you guys want me to do a voice for you?
Yes.
Okay, give me something to say.
Subscribe to Monty Wolf.
Oh my god, it transformed!
I'm literally a werewolf.
Subscribe to Monty Wolf.
Oh god.
If you don't use that at the end of the video, I'm gonna beat your ass.
So good. So fucking good.
That's gonna be at the end of every video now.
So good, I love it.
Oh my god, wait, can you spell out the channel so I can have it, please? Oh my gosh, wait, you're popular.
No, I'm just a dude.
I'm just, actually, no, you're just a dog on the internet. Get it right, Monty.
Yeah!
It's a black box.
Tell the black box all of your secrets.
Hello, black box. I like being pegged.
I was gonna be like, I'm a gay furry.
That's not a secret.
Yeah, it is. What are you talking about? No one knows I'm a gay furry. Besides you guys.
Nah, not the sheer amount of videos.
I only had like an arrow that pointed towards me and said gay. That's all it said. That can mean anything.
I want a version of Netflix that is
He
just
is
called
gay.
Monty, and you can scroll through like the whole like library, and it's all of your videos of just how gay you are. Top 10 gay moments.
Oh my god. Number 10. Monty taking no.
Please send this to one of the the editors that can animate.
I'm sorry, editors.
I'm not gonna make your life easy.
Hey, you're not allowed to be gaming past your bedtime. Aw, that is
Oh, that's sweet.
that is sweet. That felt weird because he was like 12, so I skipped. Ah! Now it's like really quiet.
You were very excited, and you just went
Very
completely.
That went from everything to nothing in just half a second.
What's going on? What's going on? Okay.
That's a thing.
I'm just gonna sit here and make them feel awkward.
He's gonna awkwardly reach for like the escape key now.
Oh, he just skipped.
Oh my god, you got caught being gay at McDonald's? And you lost your boyfriend?
Oh, my cheeks hurt so much from laughing.
Your cheeks hurt, Monty-chan? Are you okay? Don't be such a baka and don't hurt yourself like that. Well.
I was waiting for it to turn into your cheeks hurt. You can make my cheeks hurt.
Your cheeks hurt? Oni-chan, why
Oh
don't you
no!
make
Why
mine
is
hurt
it an
too?
extra
And
sexual
I'm
today?
not talking about the ones on my face.
Now I need to look up Bardick's stuff and roast him. It's his turn to get roasted.
Oh god.
Man, you comment like a bottom. Hashtag furry, hashtag VR chat, hashtag furries, hashtag for you page, hashtag for you page, hashtag party season.
Why?
RJ?
I understand why normies hate us.
Yeah.
The second it said back to you, you understand why.
Now I know how normal people feel when they see my content.
Woof woof, bite bite.
His tracking broke.
They're done.
He just left the room.
It's gone.
Oh, they got the chicken nuggets. Yes.
Look at that. Look at that shiny.
Nice dip, bro.
How am I still live? What do you mean? It's only 5:05 p.m. for me.
Good boys. Oh god. I'm a furry and even I cringed at that. God damn it. Oh, good boy perks. Someone say pets. Don't you dare say walkies.
Monty, I'm pretty sure there is a video that you have said walkies before. Walkies before.
Wait, someone say walkies?
What's the blue one's name?
Signal. Signal.
Are you straight?
No.
You're.
He's very.
I'm all kinds of things.
Can you please say for me? Come here, Bardic. You're my little pug champ.
Oh my god.
Bardic, come here. You're mommy's little pod champ.
Why? Why is this like this? Oh, I
can't breathe.
You also find Monty Wolf on Twitch too.
My roommates, just shut the fuck up.
Tell them to not talk to mommy's little poggy like that. Arara, Ani-chan.
Ara, Ani-chan.
Arara.
Ara.
What?
Ara.
Why?
Well, that was an experience.
Oh, hey Signal, are you?
The fuck are you looking at?
Are you? You know.
Are you?
My what?
No, we're talking. We're singing.
I mean, are you?
Are you?
No.
Okay, so you know what that
You know what
means.
that
So you know when I say "are you,"
No.
you don't know what it means.
Yes. You should elaborate and tell me what it means.
Do you like boys?
Yeah.
Then you're.
Yay! Good for you, then y'all.
I don't think you know how fast my heart is pumping right now.
Why?
Because you three are YouTubers.
Yeah, this is the Wolf of Park guy.
Monty Wolf.
Oh no.
There it is.
Hello.
I am on your Discord server.
Hey, poggers.
Hey. Wait, go into general chat right now.
Here, I'll type hi in general.
Oh no.
I was actually trying to find you on here. One video I watched during class was you guys doing Starbucks orders. I was trying so hard not for other people just to look at my phone.
You're watching class, damn.
Oh no! in Portuguese.
I love it.
I'm trying not to die over here.
Wait. Can you give us some, rip us some fat clouds, please? Give us some rings. Oh, I saw that ring. That was good. Hey, that's me tomorrow.
Jesus!
Wow, that was not a good way to start a conversation.
Good evening.
That was aggressive.
It's furry.
Correct. He's looking at the furry tag.
I love your hair.
Whose? Huh?
The one holding the bong, which I also I vibe with.
Oh, thank you. It's a reverse skunk stripe, like Pepe Le Pew.
Subscribe to Monty Wolf.
Oh god, no, they actually use the sound. Wait, it was too powerful. Oh god. Nah. I think that's the end of the YouTube section. Well, I'm about to end the stream, so I've had enough. That wore me out, but it was a fun stream. It was extremely thank you guys for watching. This is LittleSKyRose. I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. also see you tomorrow during tomorrow's stream, so